Why, hello. We're going to do a fun test today. We're going to test this Canson watercolor paper. And because what I want to know is I want to know the difference between the front and the back. Because I've used this hundreds of times and I don't know the difference. So this is what I'm going to use as reference photos. These are Instax mini films that I took years ago now. And I like to use them as a reference because, there's not a lot of detail in the photos. They're little bitty photos. But it allows me to get a general idea of the space and to make up my own details. That's what I like. I'm going to use my favorite brush pen. It's a Pentel, brush pen. The ink is in the barrel. And if something like this looks interesting to you, please go get one. Go get one and play with it. This is my favorite pen that I have ever found, and I seriously doubt anything is ever going to match it. But anyway, we're testing this paper from the front to the back because I don't remember ever testing it. And I've used it hundreds of times. So many sketchbooks of this I've used. So many. And I need to know for myself if there's a difference between the front and the back. Because for some papers, it's okay. It's okay to use the front or the back, and it doesn't matter. But I don't know if that's the case for this one. I just don't know. I've probably used every single type of paper that is in this Canson line, and this watercolor is my favorite. Not because it's a good watercolor paper. It's not. It's a good enough watercolor paper, which is a different kind of thing. I mean, you can't expect the Taj Mahal out of a cheap paper. You just can't do that. It's not fair to the paper. This is a cheap paper. But I use it not really for watercolor paper, but as a mixed media paper. I like it a lot for mixed media. And it is a travesty that I have never tried specifically to test the front versus the back. All of these years of me using it, and I have no idea if there's a difference. We're going to fix that today. I'm going to try to get these line works in pretty quick. They're super sped up. Let me tell you, these line works these things take me a long time to do. They just do. And I speed them up quite a bit because, it's not the point of watching in real-time speed me do this. That's not the point. I'm not going to upload a 3-hour video just to... No. We're not going to do that. I'm sure you get the general idea of what it takes to make these. And I make them a lot. This is what I consider my current style of artwork. It's with this pen. This pen is required. My plan is to put watercolor on top of this, on top of both, and see which takes it better, the front or the back of the paper. If you have a guess which is going to win, pause the video and put it down in the comments. I'm curious. If you want to know how to change this, see, this is a fresh barrel. It's got fresh ink in it. And what you do is you just unscrew the barrel and you put the brush part onto the new barrel. And, instant fresh brush with fresh ink ready to go. I've done this so many times. I've had this pen... We're approaching 2 years now of continuous use of this pen where I haven't needed to get a new brush tip. I've been using the same brush tip since 2019. I think it was fall of 2019 when I bought this specific one. So I've been using it a long time for very, very, very many pieces of art. It lasts a long time. I've just used many barrels of ink because, look how much black I'm using. I use a lot of black ink, okay? It is what it is. There's an art term out there that I can never think of that, editing Melissa, please put it on the screen because it is not going to come to me, but it's the stark contrast between the darks and the lights that I really, really love. And it seems to do really well with this brush pen. Me and this brush pen and that stark contrast, we get along so well. And I genuinely don't know if I'm ever going to be able to convey how I sketch these out because I do this sketching portion in my head before I even get the brush out. I organize where the big shapes are going to go in my head, and then I as long as you put down where the big shapes are, then you get to make up all the stuff in between. That's kind of the best way I've found to be able to make these line works without getting out a pencil and putting everything down first, because I just go straight in with ink because I made those sketches in my head. So here's the watercolor we're going to use. Now these, okay, so I've learned a thing about myself recently. I have an extreme dislike of paint in little tubes. I hate the little watercolor tubes, and I hate them so much that I have had ones in the past for so many years that I have just been unable to convince myself to use because they were in little tubes, and I didn't understand why I didn't like the watercolor. Turns out it's because they were in little tubes. I hate the things that come in little tubes. But I put the little tubes that I already had. Most of them are Winsor & Newton ones from who knows where. Probably little sets that I'd been gifted over the years sort of thing. But I put them in pans. And after I put them in pans, no issues. So it was, for me, it was definitely a brain wall right there where it's just like, nope. You ain't going to play with it if it's in a little tube and you have to squeeze a little tube on a palette. No. We're not going to do that. Nope. So, as long as I got it in one of those little palettes like that, I think I'm going to be good. We're going to get along that way. So that's just something I very recently learned about myself, which means I am on the official road to making peace with watercolor, because I personally find watercolor to be hard, like intensely hard, harder than the other mediums. The hardest medium that's out there is figuring out how to do watercolor. Oh man, because you can't get them out of control that I want, and you can't do layers because since I've done so much stuff in acrylic, I'm so used to be able to do stuff in layers. That's what I like. Can't really do that so much in watercolor. It doesn't work the same. I'm super familiar with how it worked on the front side. Now, the test is on the back side. And I do have to say, some of these watercolors are not fully transparent, so they have a little bit of pigment they're leaving on top of the black. Not ideal circumstances, but maybe I could lift it off the black areas. Because, I don't know, I'm not convinced. There are fully transparent things out there I could use instead.
See how that kind of... It doesn't move around like it should. I don't think this back part was meant to be used to paint it on. That's okay. We're gonna figure this out because it's acting a little weird. But you're not really, paper has a front and a back. And some papers you can get away with using both sides, but not all of them. And I don't think this one had a backside that you're supposed to use like this. I just don't. I think this is... Yeah, I don't think it's meant to be like this. I don't think it's meant to be used like that. And that's, it's asking a lot of a cheap paper. It's asking a lot of a cheap paper to behave well on both sides, because that's what this is. This is a cheap paper. I don't mind. It's one of the ones that I know is not the best quality, and it doesn't bother me. It does not bother me that this is cheap paper, because it mostly does what I want it to. It's good enough, especially for... see, the thing is, I don't consider this a watercolor paper. I don't. I consider it a multimedia paper. Even though it's labeled as a watercolor paper, I don't feel that this Canson watercolor paper is really great for watercolor. I just don't. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think it is fabulous for multimedia sort of things. So what I use it for a lot is for these pieces that are, ink and maybe a little bit of watercolor thrown on top, or maybe just ink by itself, or maybe I'm going to get some colored pencils out and add some to it too, and those sorts of things. It's pretty fabulous for that. But there is a place for paper that is not the best quality, and that's okay. Everything doesn't have to be the highest quality archival everything. It just doesn't have to. Sometimes you just want to put something on a piece of paper and not even worry about it. Because that's not the purpose. Sometimes the purpose is just to make a thing. And there's nothing wrong with that. A lot of the times I just want to make a thing and I don't care what it's on. I don't really care about saving it for archival purposes or any of that kind of stuff. I just want to make a thing. And this Canson watercolor paper is perfect for just making a thing. I would not suggest it for, if you're going to use it for more serious stuff, to look elsewhere. Don't use this for that. Use this for practice. Use this for getting out ideas. Use this when you're beginning, because it's pretty dang good for that. And I use this paper a lot. I use a lot because it is cheap. Because I'm in the States, so I have places that are called like Michael's, and every once in a while, like once or twice a year, it will go on sale of buy one, get one free. So you get two for the price of one, and that's when I stock up on this paper, because I'm quite prolific. I just make a lot of stuff, and so I can just blow through this paper when I'm just wanting to make graphic looking work that I don't expect to really sell or any of that kind of stuff. It's pretty good for that. So the back of this paper, definitely not meant to be the watercolor side, and that's okay. I still love this paper for what it can do and what it has done for me in the past. Just get me where I need to go. No fuss, nothing extra. So it's like a cheap car, a cheap, reliable car. So, think of like an old Toyota that was produced in maybe the 90s or the early aughts, that it ain't pretty, it's a little beat up, it doesn't have hubcaps anymore, but, it's gonna get you where you need to go. And there's a lot of value in things that are gonna get you where you need to go. There ain't nothing wrong with that. This paper, for me, is that. It's gonna get me where I need to go. And I think it's good enough for what I want it to do. Look at that fun purple. Let's add some fun colors to this. Let's just add a little bit of extra. See? There is no worries about me messing this up, because I can't mess it up. Why would I even worry about messing it up? I don't have to. Ooh, okay, I like what adding those purples did. So maybe I'll do that over here too, because this is a little flat.
Batman's here.
Did you say Batman?
No, it's Bugman.
Oh, like Batman?
Batman's here.
I'm a little confused.
Another thing I gotta get better at with watercolor is getting enough of the pigment into things. Like, it's not as saturated. The colors aren't as saturated as I want them to be. So I gotta keep working on that. I'm sure there are ways to improve that. And I've started playing a little bit with like liquid watercolors, which I love. And I find those more interesting, not more interesting, but easier for the way I like to work, for getting those bright pigments and things. But I know there's gotta be a way for me to be able to do it with these pan watercolors, and I'm gonna figure it out. I am. Because these things, life is full of color, and I want more color in these paintings. And I'm gonna get there. Of course I'm gonna get there. I put in so much practice and so much testing and so much work into this because it's important to me. And in a lot of ways, art is like meditation. It is the space to test out ideas, the space to be with yourself and with your thoughts, and also to be able to clear your mind and focus. And it's kind of how I meditate almost. It's how I do it. And it's how I like to explore daydreams and ideas sometimes. And I just happen to be letting you inside my little brain as I do these sorts of things. Because, I do this kind of stuff on my own anyway. I'm just now filming it and talking about it on the internet. So, hopefully you're a little entertained by this. Maybe it'll inspire somebody to do something like this, because I think it's fun. But, so, I'm not a big fan of the backside, so it's not meant for it. It didn't behave correctly. There's a lot of leftover pigment on all of the black areas, which I'm also not a big fan of. I'm gonna have to try a different method to see if I can make these work in a different way. Maybe I'll do it backwards next time. I had a good time with this palette. I'm glad I found a way to get along with the watercolors. So thanks for hanging out today. I had a good time. I hope you had a good time too. Keep your cup full. Bye.